The announcement came like a thunderclap. Donald Trump, in his dramatic return to the White House, signed a sweeping 90-day immigration ban on citizens from 12 countries, several of them African. Washington called it a matter of national security, but to many it felt like déjà vu, a resurrection of the controversial Muslim ban from Trump's first term, and then came the voice no one expected. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the young and defiant leader of Burkina Faso, stepped forward to openly challenge Trump. His fiery words, accusing the U.S. of discrimination, arrogance, and hypocrisy, lit up headlines worldwide. Overnight, Traoré transformed from a regional revolutionary into a global symbol of resistance. This isn't just about visas and passports. This is a confrontation about power, dignity, and the future of international order. Can an African leader really push back against America's most polarizing president? What happens if the courts, the diplomats, and the people take sides? Stay with us, because this story will take you from the dusty streets of Ouagadougou to the marble halls of Washington, and the outcome could shape the world for years to come. On June 4, 2025, President Trump signed Proclamation 10949, an executive order banning the entry of foreign nationals from a list of 12 countries. The order took effect immediately, stranding students, workers, and families mid-journey. Airports turned chaotic. Embassies scrambled to clarify. Social media exploded with anger and fear. For Americans, it was another hardline Trump move, one that his base celebrated as America First in action. But for those outside U.S. borders, especially in Africa, the message was chilling. You are not welcome here. The global reaction was swift. European allies expressed concern, while human rights groups denounced the measure as discriminatory. But the real earthquake came from West Africa. In Ouagadougou, Captain Ibrahim Traoré gave a televised address that stunned the world. He called the ban an insult to the dignity of Africa and declared that his nation would not sit idle while its youth were locked out of opportunities abroad. Within hours, clips of Traoré's fiery words went viral. Hashtags like Traoré Defies Trump and Africa Speaks trended worldwide. Ordinary Africans cheered his courage, while critics warned he was picking a fight he couldn't win. Yet for many, it wasn't about winning, it was about standing up. Traoré's challenge shifted the conversation. What began as a domestic U.S. policy became a global diplomatic flashpoint. Trump expected pushback from lawyers and protesters at home. But he hadn't counted on a young African leader making this about respect, sovereignty, and equality. For the first time, America's immigration rules weren't just being debated in Washington courtrooms, they were being fought over in the streets of Africa. Who is Ibrahim Traoré, and why does his voice matter in this battle? Born in 1988, Traoré was a little-known army captain until September 2022, when he led a coup that toppled Burkina Faso's government. At just 34 years old, he became one of the world's youngest leaders. Unlike polished diplomats, Traoré was blunt, fiery, and unafraid to call out Western powers. He earned a reputation for speeches laced with revolutionary energy, demanding sovereignty, resisting foreign interference, and declaring Africa must chart its own future. In the Sahel region, ravaged by terrorism and instability, many saw him as a hero. To the west, he was unpredictable, a military ruler who refused to play by the rules. By stepping into the Trump immigration debate, Traoré crossed into global politics. He wasn't just protecting Burkina citizens. He was positioning himself as the voice of African dignity. He framed Trump's ban as proof that the world still viewed Africans as disposable. And for a continent with one of the largest youth populations, his words struck a nerve. His gamble was risky. Trump is known for doubling down against critics. By challenging him openly, Traoré put Burkina Faso, a landlocked nation with modest influence, in Washington's crosshairs. Some African leaders advised caution, fearing U.S. aid cuts or sanctions. But Traoré brushed aside those fears. "We may be small, but we are not voiceless," he declared. And suddenly, he wasn't alone. From Dakar to Nairobi, African youth rallied online, praising his courage. Even in the diaspora, students and immigrants stranded by the ban began to see Traoré as their champion. The world now had a narrative, the young African captain versus the American president. A clash of symbolism, pride, and power, with global audiences glued to what would happen next. While Traoré fought in the court of public opinion, lawyers in the United States opened a second front, the legal battlefield. Within days, lawsuits flooded federal courts. Civil rights groups argued the ban violated the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution. Universities sued over the loss of international students. Families filed urgent petitions after loved ones were detained mid-travel. Immigration lawyers pointed out that Trump's proclamation, though carefully worded, still echoed the discriminatory intent of his 2017 Muslim ban. History loomed large. In 2017, federal courts had quickly blocked Trump's first executive order. Protesters flooded airports, chanting, "Let them in!" Judges in Hawaii and Washington issued nationwide injunctions. The administration was forced to revise the order multiple times before the Supreme Court narrowly upheld a version in 2018. Now, in 2025, opponents saw a chance to repeat that resistance. But Trump's legal team had learned from the past. This new ban included exemptions, security justifications, and technical language designed to withstand judicial review. They argued the president has broad authority over immigration under Section 212F of the Immigration and Nationality Act. The stakes couldn't be higher. If courts strike down the ban, it's a humiliating defeat for Trump and a symbolic victory for Traoré. If they uphold it, Trump's grip on immigration hardens, and Traoré's defiance risks looking hollow. As hearings began, the world watched nervously. The courtroom drama wasn't just legal. It was political, moral, and deeply personal for the thousands caught in limbo. Even as lawsuits unfolded, diplomacy erupted into chaos. Traoré leveraged the African Union, AU, as a platform to escalate his challenge. In an extraordinary session, he urged fellow leaders to adopt reciprocal measures, deny visas to U.S. officials, suspend military cooperation, and demand the UN condemn Trump's proclamation. The response was mixed but fiery. Nigeria, South Africa, and Kenya expressed outrage, while some smaller states hesitated, wary of economic fallout. Still, Traoré's defiance inspired many. For once, Africa wasn't waiting for Europe or America to define the terms of the debate. Trump, true to form, hit back. On social media, he mocked Traoré as a failed coup leader and warned of consequences for countries siding against the U.S. His words inflamed the situation. Instead of isolating Traoré, they made him more popular among Africans who saw Trump's insults as proof of arrogance. Analysts warned of a brewing diplomatic crisis. U.S. corporations operating in Africa began lobbying Washington to ease tensions, fearing retaliatory restrictions. Meanwhile, international students, many stranded abroad, became human symbols of the fallout. Families were torn apart, careers derailed, lives disrupted. What began as an executive order in Washington was now a continent-wide standoff. Traoré had transformed a domestic policy into a global test of power, dignity, and respect. As the standoff deepens, the world speculates on what comes next. 4 explosive scenarios dominate the debate. Courts block the ban. Judges could declare Trump's order unconstitutional, halting enforcement nationwide. This would embolden Traoré, making him the first African leader in modern history to claim victory over a U.S. president on a global issue. Ban survives trimmed. Courts may uphold parts of the order while carving out exceptions for students or family visas. Trump would claim vindication, but Traoré could spin it as proof that resistance forced concessions. Diplomatic fallout. If African nations unite, they could retaliate against U.S. businesses and officials. This would strain trade, aid, and security partnerships, forcing Washington to reconsider its hardline approach. Escalation. Trump could expand restrictions under emergency powers, doubling down. Traoré, in turn, might rally more nations, igniting a North-South showdown at the UN. The stakes reach beyond immigration. For African youth, it's about dignity and opportunity. For America, it's about sovereignty and security. For the world, it's about whether smaller nations can stand tall against superpowers. In the words of one analyst, this isn't just a 90-day ban. It's a 90-day countdown to see if global power is shifting before our eyes. So where does this leave us? A young African captain, Ibrahim Traoré, has dared to defy Donald Trump, one of the most polarizing figures in modern politics. A domestic immigration order has exploded into a legal, diplomatic, and geopolitical battle. The next few weeks will decide everything. Will courts strike the ban down? Will Africa unite behind Traoré's defiance? Or will Trump tighten his grip and show that America still calls the shots? One thing is certain. This confrontation is bigger than visas and passports. It's about pride, justice, and the future of global order. The outcome could rewrite how nations, big and small, interact in the 21st century. Traoré versus Trump is not just politics. It's history in motion, and we are all witnesses. If you want to follow every twist of this showdown, make sure to like, share, and subscribe because the next chapter is coming fast, and it could change everything.